If I want to send $1 million from me to you without a bank, Satoshi solved that. But inadvertently, when Satoshi solved that problem, Satoshi figured out not just how to send $1 million from New York to Tokyo without an intermediary, but how to send $1 million forward in time 30 years without an intermediary. If you can transfer something without an intermediary, then you can store something without an intermediary. So the killer app of Bitcoin is the store of value in cyberspace.
Bitcoin is transforming the financial landscape by giving individuals greater control through its decentralized and transparent nature. As a digital currency, it provides a unique combination of security, creativity, and financial freedom that traditional systems often struggle to deliver. This shift has caught the attention of key industry figures like Michael Saylor, executive chairman of MicroStrategy, who believes strongly in Bitcoin's potential to redefine our economic future. In a recent conversation with Trish Regan, co-founder of 76 Research, Saylor discussed Bitcoin's reliability as a store of value. He highlighted the sophistication of its design and referenced his Bitcoin 24 model, which forecasts the currency's future developments. Saylor emphasized how Satoshi Nakamoto's solution to the double spend problem enables secure transactions without intermediaries, positioning Bitcoin as an attractive option for preserving wealth digitally. Many Bitcoin advocates are optimistic about the future of BTC, not only in terms of its market price, but also regarding its potential to emerge as the world's reserve currency, akin to the role currently held by the US dollar. While it's acknowledged that the capped supply of 21 million Bitcoins may not meet the needs of billions of users, enthusiasts argue that smaller units, known as sats, are likely to become the standard for everyday transactions and payments. This shift could democratize access to digital currency, allowing more people to participate in the financial system. Recently, Saylor published an infographic comparing the performance of Bitcoin, MicroStrategy's stock, and the S&P 500 index since August 2020, when his company began actively purchasing Bitcoin. Over these 4 years, MicroStrategy's stock has emerged as the standout performer, boasting a remarkable increase of 1,325%. Bitcoin has also demonstrated significant growth, rising by 451% during the same time frame. The cryptocurrency reached a historic peak of $69,000 in late 2021, experienced a substantial dip to $15,500 a year later, and has recently made a remarkable comeback, soaring to an all-time high of $74,000 in March of this year. If you want to stay updated and understand what the top Bitcoin and cryptocurrency investors and leading thought leaders of our time are thinking, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications for more videos like this.
Well, so first of all, what Satoshi discovered was how I send something of value between two different individuals without a trusted intermediary. So that's known as solving the double spend problem. But if I want to send $1 million from me to you without a bank, Satoshi solved that. But inadvertently, when Satoshi solved that problem, Satoshi figured out not just how to send $1 million from New York to Tokyo without an intermediary, but how to send $1 million forward in time 30 years without an intermediary. If you can transfer something without an intermediary, then you can store something without an intermediary. So the killer app of Bitcoin is the store of value in cyberspace. And what's that worth? There's about $900 trillion worth of wealth in the world, and about half of it is used for its utility value. People buy assets for their utility. They buy houses and buildings and boats and planes and pieces of art because they want to use them, look at them. But the other half of that wealth is assets that are purchased as a long-term capital investment or as a store of value. So $450 trillion of the world is long-term capital. And so when if I take you and I drop you in Africa and I say, here, take $100 million, buy anything you want anywhere in Africa, but you got to keep it for 30 years. And, then I say, or you could have the same $100 million invested in the U.S. Most people would say, well, that's a no-brainer. I'm going to keep the money in the U.S. There's nothing I want in Africa that's as valuable as property in the U.S. But what if you can't have property in the U.S.? Then what if your choice is I can have $100 million worth of Bitcoin in cyberspace, Like I can have 100 million worth of digital property, or I can have 100 million worth of land in any country in Africa, or any building or any company or any bond or any currency in Africa. And the answer, when you think about it, is there's nothing you want in Africa that's better than having digital property in cyberspace. And there's certainly no place where you're going to trust your money or your assets for 30 years, much less 100 years, much less 1,000 years. So when you start to ask the question, where do the 8 billion people on the planet and where do the 300 million corporations on the planet, where are they going to store their capital if they don't have recourse to the United States and, property on the Upper East Side? The conclusion you come to is I'm going to put my money in cyberspace. And so Bitcoin's real use is it's digital property in cyberspace. It is cyber Manhattan. It is a place where you can store your capital and give it to your great grandchildren. And you know that you're not going to be taking risk against a bank as a counterparty or another company or country or currency or culture. When you don't want to take risk, when you don't want to make an investment, when you don't want to bet on the direction of the commodities market, when you just want to store some money for 100 years and forget about it, well, you put it in the safest bank in the universe.
Michael Saylor predicts that Bitcoin could reach $13 million per coin by 2045. This forecast is based on a model he developed called Bitcoin 24, which outlines macroeconomic trends and allows users to input their own assumptions. Saylor estimates that the US dollar supply will continue to grow at about 7% per year, consistent with historical trends. Bitcoin makes up about 0.1% of global assets, but Saylor believes it could rise to approximately 7% over the coming decades. He acknowledges that Bitcoin has been volatile, but he views this volatility as an opportunity rather than a drawback. He argues that Bitcoin will mature and stabilize, decreasing its annual growth rate from around 50% to about 20%. Recent news has highlighted Bitcoin's increasing acceptance as a legitimate asset class. Major financial institutions, including BlackRock and Fidelity, have begun exploring Bitcoin ETFs, signaling growing institutional interest. Saylor emphasizes that Bitcoin operates 24/7, making it more responsive to global economic changes than traditional assets. He suggests that investors should approach Bitcoin from a long-term perspective, especially if they plan to pass wealth on to future generations. He advises caution for those looking to invest for the short term, as Bitcoin's volatility can be a risk.
My assumptions are the US dollar supply is going to continue to expand about 7% a year. And that is the historic rate of expansion of dollars for the past 100 years. That's how I arrive at that. That's just how fast the money supply is expanding if you look at M2. And I think that there'll be innovation from AI. So some things like equities will probably grow a little bit faster because AI is going to have a boost to equities. I think over time, gradually, technology is going to demonetize gold and some of the other stores of value assets that were used in the 20th and the 19th century. But the 21st century, we're going to digitally transform property and transform gold into digital property, digital gold. Okay. And when you look at Bitcoin's growth over the past 15 years, it's been growing more than 100% a year for the first decade or so. And for the last 4 years, it's been appreciating about 50% a year in ARR. I think it's 50% a year in ARR, and it's 50 vol, which is like 3 times the volatility of the S&P and 3 times the performance of the S&P index. Okay. Over the next 21 years, I think it will grow faster than the S&P, and it's going to grow to the point where it's about 7% of the world's assets. Right now, it's about 0.1% of the world's assets. And I think that it will gradually approach, but it will never be as big as the S&P index or equities. It won't ever be as big as real estate. But in that world where it decelerates from 50% down to 20%-ish, it will appreciate from 65 or 70,000 up to 13 million a coin in my base case. And that amounts to about a 29% ARR on average over the 21 years. And when it's half the size of the S&P, it'll still be twice as volatile, probably performing 50% better because it's a 24/7, 365 asset. It's subject to global chaos and global capital flows, and it doesn't have all the risk factors of property or the risk factors of equity to hold it back. If you have money you want to give to your children in 40 years, definitely buy Bitcoin with it. In 40 years, Bitcoin is going to be worth a lot more. In 4 weeks, there's no telling what it'll be worth. So think in terms of 0 to 4 years is very safe conventional assets. Think in terms of 4 to 10 years is more like investment things, and think beyond 10 years is that's something I'm buying to give to my great granddaughter. That it's going to be in the family for ever. It's like the center of London. It's been passed by the royal family of London down from family to family for 1,000 years. That, if you think of it like that, then you'll go into it with your eyes wide open.
Geopolitical and economic uncertainties are currently shaping the landscape for Bitcoin, particularly with the upcoming U.S. presidential election set for October 27th to 28th. Recently, Bitcoin saw a 3.2% increase, briefly testing $71,500 as bullish sentiment grows amid socio-political dynamics. While early 2025 appears promising for Bitcoin's price, traders may hesitate to make significant bullish moves due to prevailing risks. Considering these factors, what potential obstacles could challenge Michael Saylor's optimistic predictions for Bitcoin, and how might these challenges influence the cryptocurrency's long-term adoption and stability? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Also, ensure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to know more about how government policies are impacting Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, then you have to watch this video next.